Hello everyone. Hello and welcome to our live session about Xen Orchestra 5.81. Again, this month we have a lot of things that we want to present to you. We made some backup improvements, we optimized our V2V tools, VMware to Vates tool, and there is a lot of other things that we will present to you, including outside of the development itself stuff. So let's not wait any longer. So Oliver, if you want to go inside this release, let's go.
Thank you, Mark. Hello, everyone, and welcome for this new live. So, indeed, on the menu, we will start with the improvement we made on the VMware migration tool, so called V2V. In very short, so we started, I think, something like 4 months ago to made our first release for it. And this one is now supporting the multi-VM import, meaning that you could select the entire any number of VM you want to migrate, and it will do it the way you want. In short, meaning that if you want to send, let's say, 2 VM in parallel or more and so on, you can do it. So basically, select all the VM, click on import, and then go grab a cup of coffee, and that will do it for you. And then put the VM on destination and so on, like we do with the one migration process. And along this improvement to do that with a more automated fashion, we also improved our error handling, meaning that in some cases there's still unsupported settings, and now it's clearly failing with a good error message, so you can exactly understand what's the issue. So again, both automation and quality of life to help you to make a seamless migration between VMware and XCP-ng Xen Orchestra. Let's move for the, let's say, kind of overview on what's going on with the backup side. You are used to improvements that we are releasing for it, but this month we managed to get something asked, I think, since maybe 2 years, something like this, which is related to the ability to transfer the backup rate when you do a job to basically add a speed limit for a job. So the speed limit is job wide. So it means if you have a job with, I don't know, 50 VMs with, I don't know, 100 disks and so on, it doesn't matter. The total throughput of the job between the XCP-ng or Xen server host to Xen Orchestra will be limited to the speed that you are entering. Obviously, if you leave it blank, there's no limits, but this could be helpful in some scenarios. Just remember that it will limit the speed between the hosts and Xen Orchestra, but not between Xen Orchestra and the place where you store your backup. Like, for example, the backup repositories and so on. In theory, obviously, it will be the same speed, but if you use, for example, multiple backup repositories at the same time, then it will scale on that aspect. So it's truly what matters, meaning the speed between your host and Xen Orchestra. In the meantime, having a speed limit is useful, but also we want to unlock the full potential of the speed by having faster backup, so people don't want any kind of limitation. So this is a topic we are deeply committed to make improvement into it. And we managed to, let's say, improve the code itself by relying on NBD. So as you may know, we are relying more and more on NBD to export the VM instead the VHD handler, because in NBD you could export with multiple blocks at the same time, which means we could remove some bottlenecks and increase the overall speed. So what we did now, because NBD was only available for block mode storage when you decided, to store your VHD in a block mode, which was the mode used for S3 that we made also available for NFS, but it stores a lot of files, so some people couldn't use it because of, let's say, file system limitation. So now we also managed to get it working with even basic, I would say, VHD backup without using this block mode. So if you have an NBD capable network, it will automatically try to go for it. So for now, it's an opt-in thing in the Xen Orchestra configuration. It's a kind of new features generalizing NBD, and we want to be careful. But as soon as you enable that, all networks using NBD will be fetched for backup using that. That could really improve the export speed. But that's just one improvement. The other great improvement is when you use NBD to export, the CPU load is a lot lower on the host because it's, let's say, more basic than the VHD export that has to translate blocks and so on. NBD is really I would say, basic stuff, but it could be parallelized, so it's very, very fast. Also, we made some improvements on the VHD transfer while it's going, to be sure that if there's a problem somewhere, we don't wait to have the full backup file on the backup repository. We are able to detect a failure a lot earlier on, but I would say the real importance about this feature is the ability to detect if the problem is, for example, in your backup repository, if your file system is corrupted or having a problem to store those files, or even if it's badly generated from the host. So thanks to this improvement on those checks on the stream, it's really, really helpful to debug and understand when something is going south, which is great because, as you can imagine, we have thousands and thousands of users all around the world with really different configuration, storage, and things like this. So it's also, a tool that will allow us to be more efficient to find any potential problems when they arise. And finally, we also improved the S3 compatibility. We were using previously AWS S3 specific checks to be sure that namings and so on are respecting the standards for AWS, but we found that some other providers weren't using exactly the same kind of restrictions and so on. So we decided to relax those restrictions so it's compatible with more providers that are not at AWS directly. So that's it for the backup side. Now we'll move on the REST API parts. As you know, the REST API is not directly replacing our existing JSON RPC through WebSocket API. It's, let's say, another way to fetch information, which is a bit simpler when you want to make some automation without having to deal with WebSockets and so on. And on the menu for the REST API improvement this month is about backups. So now you could fetch the backup logs, for example, which is really helpful if you want to see what's going on with all the latest backups. So that's rather easy to do. There's an endpoint that you could use that is called backups, and so you will have /logs, and you could get details on each backup log you want to use, and have more information on each log and investigate if something is going wrong and so on. It works also for the restore logs, so you could also check when you restore a VM if it's something that is working correctly and so on. So all kind of jobs like doing a backup or restoring a backup is exposed now through the REST API. Another thing is it's not just about the logs, but also the jobs, meaning that if the job is where you set all the parameters of the backup, like which VM or which tags for which VM will be backup to which schedule and so on. And if you want to have a look on those jobs through the REST API, now you can do that by just requesting from the backup/jobs endpoint, and it will list all your jobs and you could have all the details. So that's also an easier way to get information regarding all your backups directly through a simple HTTP call. So let us know about some feedback you might have regarding this, but we know some people were expecting it. So enjoy. Now you can do that with a simple curl call or whatever, any HTTP tool that could make the GET request. Let's move on to the MISC section, which is, let's say, usually for small quality of life improvements into the current Xen Orchestra web UI. So we enhanced the way that you could select your network. Basically, we added the VLAN number that were not present before. And so when you had multiple, physical interfaces, especially one with multiple VLANs, you couldn't know which one is which one. So that makes it a lot easier when you create a network. We also managed to do some icon groups when there is many, things happening on your host, like you need to reboot for updates, your NTP is out of date or whatever and so on. You have, kind of Christmas tree with all those icons. So what we made is to gather all of them into one single warning icon. And then when you click on it, you have a model window with all the details and the problems that you might have, which is convenient and, remove some clutter in the web UI. On the next step, we started to do that few months ago for the pool view, you had the possibility to see if your hosts were supported or not with professional support. The thing is, it was only in the pool view and not the host view. So we managed to add an icon to see if you have a pro support or not, meaning that is really clear on which part of the infrastructure is supported or not. Obviously, this is available if you are connected with your Xen Orchestra virtual appliance. Otherwise, you will have a message that we can't know that, but that's it. So it won't, block anything. As usual, that we are selling support and only support. We also improve the OpenConnect ID, OpenID Connect, sorry, on the plugin side, where we facilitate the way that when you add a OIDC thing, it will use let's say a well-known URL, so you don't have to copy paste it from your, I don't know, Keycloak or SSO or something like this. And now we also support the email as a username if you want to do that. So it means now it should be it entered the first release last month, but now we can consider it really production ready. We had enough feedback from our users, works well. So if you want to use a single sign-on to connect to Xen Orchestra UI, feel free to go ahead. It's very secure and it works great. Another last details for the current UI of Xen Orchestra. We are trying to keep up with Suse releases, which is kind of, when you have the tools installed in your VM, there is a field called distro that is returned by the Xen API that we fetch in Xen Orchestra to assign the right distro icon to it. And, generally it's very simple. Debian is Debian, Ubuntu is Ubuntu, but for Suse, that's a bit more complicated since they continue to release many names for their distro. It's the fourth one, and I'm pretty sure there will be more of them in the future. So each time we need to update that matching table. But anyway, that now works if you are using OpenSUSE Micro OS or Leap. It's now supported. So let's move on Exolite, which is indeed not directly Xen Orchestra. And as a reminder, Exolite is the lightweight version of Xen Orchestra that will be default installed inside the XCPNG 8.3 release with, let's say, this basic but still really worthwhile small UI that you could have on each host URL, meaning that you could bootstrap your entire infrastructure from there, start, stop VMs, and doing basic operation that is meant for the cluster, the pool, and not between pools. If you want more advanced feature, that's the goal of Xen Orchestra. But again, for people with maybe one machine or one cluster, or if you don't need any backup or things like this, then it's really useful. You can also have access to the console of the machines, virtual machines, and so on. Meaning, even in a case where you lose connection with Xen Orchestra, you could go to the URL of your host and see what's going on. So we added a blog post regarding this, explaining how we are building the components and a way to provide to our developers a way to test those components that are used in the UI. And if you want to take a look, that's interesting because this is exactly the same thing that we will use and we start to use for the new UI of Xen Orchestra, EXO number 6. So all the work we do for Exolite is also kind of preview on the work and sometimes components that will be used for EXO number 6. So this is also a way to do two things for the same price. So that's why it's interesting. So anyway, regarding Exolite, we have now in the VM view of host or pool, you can have different way to sort your VMs by any kind of property. So this is an interesting way to provide more flexibility regarding sorting data. For now, it's rather simple, but we could add any kind of extra conditions, tests to be sure that it will match what do you want to match. So it could be the name, description, power status, and obviously more will come. And when you create the filter, it will be visible in the UI with the description of the filter, with the syntax of how the filters are working, and you could add multiple filters or update them, which is made to be really simple and really detailed. And again, this exactly the same kind of things that will be available for X06. And obviously filters are also working for sorting objects, so it's exactly the same principle, but you could create any kind of complex sorting and filtering directly from an easy interface. But if you know obviously the syntax, you will be able to enter it directly. Regarding the other improvement we made in Exolite, I would say fix, but improve maybe the console respawn scenario when, for example, VM is rebooting and we want to directly see the virtual BIOS or virtual UEFI. You want to go fast there to enter it. We found a way to make it very, very fast, so you won't lose any information during that boot process. So it's very, very fast. So in a way, some people, had some issues on selecting the fake BIOS, entering it, modify some properties there, especially for the screen size, capacity, and so on. So this is an interesting enhancement, allowing to make more tinkering for your VMs. Also, we won't enter into all the details, but in very short, we added more components that are truly helping when you don't have all the information on when there's an error or when the page is under construction. So this make it, a more, let's say, feels like a better thing, even if it's not entirely done yet. So it's also our way to deliver something that maybe is not complete in terms of features, but feels, good in terms of UI, regardless the state of it. And the two extra components we added after that is CPU provisioning, knowing the number of vCPUs used in your pool versus the number of physical CPUs. So you could, have 4-to-1 or 6-to-1. It all depends on the load you have in your virtual machines, but this is a handy kind of overview when you can, or at least know what's going on. And also a list of all the updates that are available directly from Exolite. So again, if you don't have any Xen Orchestra connected or not yet, at least you know what's going on and what's missing. That's all for Exolite. Now let's move for the let's say other stuff. We improve the deploy script. So if you know it, and if you don't use the web deploy form, which is normally the best way to deploy Xen Orchestra, we updated also our deploy script in Bash. It's a bit more user-friendly with more details on which step is going on. And so that's something that could be useful in an environment where you can't directly use your web browser to connect to your host. And finally, there's other stuff to check out. We made a lot of content this week regarding very different topics, not only just Xen Orchestra. So if you want to take a look, just not give you all the details, but in very short, we are proud to announce that the company behind XCP-ng and Xen Orchestra, Vates, our company is now part of the Xen project, meaning that we are inside the Xen board. So it's truly a way to show that we are committed to also, spend some resources, not just code, but also experience and point of view to the Xen board to, shift or let's say work with the Xen project upstream in a way where we are really invested into it. There are some security updates on the XCP-ng side, so please take a look on those articles to be sure you are up to date. And there's also some interesting news if you are interested in the Rust language. We are now bringing more and start to use that language for some components around the Xen hypervisor. And if you want to learn more about this, feel free to read those articles. So that's it for what's inside this release and other things. Mark, if you want to go for the closing thoughts, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't have a lot to add because you covered it pretty much everything. I just note that the Xen Developer and Design Summit is pretty much around the corner now. So that will be the next meetup for all the team, for all the XCP-ng team in particular. And we will be sure to make you a complete feedback of what will happen on that side too. So the pace of the release currently are very high, and we are very happy with that. So that's all for this one, and I think that's all for me too.
Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great afternoon. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye. See you next month.